Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and we are making two beautiful leather belts. Now, Chapter 1, we sized our belts. Chapter 2, we did our edge work. So we have two very finished professional blanks to start with. Basically a big empty canvas. Now, we're going to use just a little tooling, give you a feel for that. We're going to set some spots, some turquoise decorative rivets, but here's the coolest thing. Sky's the limit. We're just working with 2 or 3 elements. Unlimited elements, unlimited designs. But also too, remember, anything I use in this video, weaverleathercraft.com, or just look at the links below and that'll take you right to our website. So let's do this. Let's jump over here and make our patterns. Now, the first rule in belt design, do it however you want to do it. Now, there's just a couple of tricks here that are going to help a little bit. First off, say I want to place conchos consistently across a distance, okay? I've got 4 conchos. I want to put 4 on my belt. So let's call that 20 inches. Easy enough. I'm going to divide by 4. Okay, so 5, 10, 15, and 20. Well, that puts our last concho on our stop. Here's why. We need to take this distance and divide by 1 more than we need. So let's say 5. Well, easy enough. There's 4, 8, 12, 16. There we go. So what we have here, that's a little off, but we've got a consistent distance from our start to a concho, same between each concho, but here's the important part. We've got a consistent distance from our last concho to our stop. It's going to make the whole belt look very organized, all right? Secondly, on a belt, this is a dead zone. So I don't necessarily want to have a complicated design or an expensive concho here, because when our tip is through there, we're never going to see that. But here's the bigger problem. Say I drop a piece of hardware in right there. What's going to happen is every time I put this belt on, that belt's going to hit that piece of hardware. And it's going to be frustrating. I don't want that to happen to somebody that's wearing one of my belts. All right? On the other end, similar situation. I don't want the design so close to my last hole that my buckle won't seat. Okay? Couple easy tricks going to make this all very simple. Now, I've got a pattern here. To save us a little time, I've dropped in a line at 1/4 inch in from each side, and then our center line. Now, we have ample room to work here, so I'm just going to find roughly the center. Now, the cool thing about these designs, they're recurring. So therefore, I don't have to make a pattern 34 inches long. I simply make one section of that pattern, and I'm going to use these 2 spots as my registration marks. What I mean by that is I'll have my 2 spots out here. I'll mark my pattern, simply move that down, and we'll punch a hole in our outside spot so that I can see that. Simply mark it, move it, mark it. Makes the whole thing very easy. We're also going to do a spread here, 6 inches. Common denominator for a lot of belt sizes. All right, so let's just drop in with our square. Let's drop in a center line. Okay, cool. Well, we've already found the markings for these 3, or for the rivet in these 2 spots. Cool. Let's mark those. All right, next, we're going to come out a 1/2 inch. We're doing 1/2 inch here. Let's do a 1/2 inch here. So 1/2 inch mark on either side. All right, now it's simply my design. I'm going to take 2 more spots, but I'm going to push them out a little bit. So let's go with 3/4 from that mark. Well, there's our design. 2 more spots and we're done. Now, with me, I prefer not to have my patterns stack right next to each other. I want a little bit of a spread there, but also I want to kind of tie them in together. So I'm going to drop a spot in the middle. So 1 3/4 inches from our outside spot. There we go. And on this side, 1 3/4 from there. There we go. Let's mark those. Well, that's easy enough. Cool, easy pattern. But let's do this. Let's practice a little bit of good pattern maintenance, because I don't want to punch a hole where I need a spot. Spot's not going to sit. So black mark, that's a hole we're going to punch. Red mark, that's a hole we're going to mark. There we go. Looks good. Great pattern. Now, what I'll do is I'll trim each end. We're going to put a hole here, but we're going to mark that so we don't punch that. And then we'll use that for this belt. Now, let's do this. I'm going to take this, pull everything up, reorganize, and then we're going to go to the pattern for our veg tan belt. Now, same with our veg tan as our water buffalo crazy horse. I've got a line at 1/4 inch in from each side and our center line. Now, we're going to go with a 6-inch spread. You can make this 5 inches if that's what will fit your belt better, and the difference, unnoticeable. All right, so let's do this. Let's just pick a point right in the middle of our paper and drop in a center line. Now, no markings here because we're going to work from here. All right, conchos, 6 inches apart. So let's drop in a mark at 3 inches either side of our center. All right, now we want to drop our spots in. Again, just an abstract measurement, what looks good to me. Let's come in 1.5 inches from the center of each concho. All right, there's our spot. Now we'll mark these with our markers very shortly. With our design, what I want to do, let's just again abstract. This just looks good to me. I'm going to come out 1/2 of an inch on the outside of either spot mark. There we go. That's going to be the outside of our tooled area. Now we've got a template here. We can certainly find the right concho size, probably about there, and we can put that as the edge, the curve for the edge of our design, but that isn't going to match. It's going to be too tight. So let's jump up here all the way up to the largest size. Now that's perfect. That curve matches the curve of my concho. So on this end, at our mark, let's just draw in, and I've got a center line on my template. Most do. Let's drop that in. Okay, easy enough. Now I've got a template that can make this long curve for me, but let's make a point here. Our house is full of templates. In fact, this is the lid from a Pyrex bowl. In fact, I've got ink all over me now. But again, our house is full of all kinds of tools. We just have to look for them. Very nice, easy enough there. Now let's jump over to this side. Now I'm connecting my corners. Hold that down. There we go. Well, that's easy enough. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to cut this pattern out. We're going to step over here and we're going to mark our beautiful blanks. Now let's work with our water buffalo belt first. So let's line that up. Now I've punched holes so I can mark this easily. What I want to do, up to you, always. But I'm going to take my first spot hole, I'm going to drop that right on my last or most inside size hole, and I'm simply with an awl going to mark this pattern all the way down. So let's mark. And this leather is great for marking because it's very obvious. There we go, not going to mark that. Okay, so there. Now our belt's marked. All I have to do is next step down my first spot hole, find my last spot hole from the previous, and again mark. And I'm going to work my way down. We should have 5 sets. And marking my last. Perfect, that looks good. Now I'm going to leave off this last spot because again, that gives me room for my tongue to move through the keeper without getting caught. All right, let's do this though. On our pattern, I've got a black circle here. That means I need to punch a hole. I'm going to put a decorative rivet right in the middle of each of these sets. So let's do this to keep from being confused and to keep from making a mistake. Let's go ahead and punch a hole where we need to punch it. So therefore, when my holes are punched, I know every other mark simply needs a spot and I won't make a mistake. And there we go. All right, very nice. Now this is ready to go. So I'm going to set this over there and we're going to jump over to our veg tan. Now again, to save us a little time, I've already cased my leather, but I'm going to make one more pass because all this is water. I'm simply going to run that down my belt. Now we don't need a lot of depth here because we're simply marking our belt. But also, big trick here, even if I'm tooling a small section, I want to wet the whole panel. That will keep me from having water lines or watermarks if I'm using a lighter colored dye. Now, secondly too, great pattern, but it's on paper. Work very well if I'm simply marking holes. But if I need to scribe a line, I need to go up to a little bit heavier paper. So I've simply transferred my pattern paper over to some cardstock. Now, I can certainly lay this in just like we did on the water buffalo, but I want a little room there. I need some room for that buckle to seat, and at the other end, that's a dead zone, so we're not really going to worry about that. So I could start here, but let's do this. let's just eyeball about 1.5 inches in. I'm going to lay my pattern in. Now let's mark for concho, and then scribe in our pattern. Well, that's easy enough. Very visible. But also too, one trick. Now I can certainly mark my conchos and then take this pattern piece and drop it in. The problem is if I make a mistake, I'm going to go right across the visible part of my belt. Whereas with the negative piece, or trim out, or cut out, if I drop inside, it's no issue because I'm going to fill that in with a backgrounder. So I'm going to make this pattern from here on down. Then we're going to jump over here, add some spots to our water buffalo. And our last mark, there we go, nice. Now let's do this. We're going to go all the way up to our largest hole because we're going to drop in a concho here. And let's simply punch our holes. And our last hole, very nice, looks good. Okay, Chapter 4, we are going to drop in spots, conchos, some tooling, and some decorative rivets. So follow me there and let's decorate these beautiful blanks.